The speed at which B2B marketing is evolving right now is systemic. It's not just the channels or the content, it's the way we architect teams, define creativity, and execute strategy. And generative AI is not a layer on the top, it's becoming the infrastructure underneath. So, yes, tools are out there, the adoption curve is climbing, and every marketing organization has some initiative in motion. But the real differentiator here now is execution. Who's doing it well? Who's moving beyond pilots to playbooks? Who's gone from content generation to pipeline contribution? And who's building AI not as an add on but as a core operating layer? That's what makes this next conversation so important and timely. To moderate it, I am excited to welcome someone who brings both strategic clarity and on the ground marketing expertise, Shweta Sharma from our very own marketing leadership team at Busy. She will be facilitating today's panel discussion on generative AI in B2B marketing, driving innovation and efficiency, a conversation that promises to be equal parts bold thinking and tactical depth. Over to you, Shweta.
Thank you, Mehak. Hello and welcome everyone. I'm Shweta Sharma, Assistant Manager Marketing at Busy Interactive. And I'll be moderating today's session on generative AI in B2B marketing, driving innovation and efficiency. It's an honor for me to welcome two of the very distinguished speakers who come with a very deep expertise in marketing. First up, we have Helen Yu. She's the founder and CEO of TigonAdvisory Corp. She's a globally recognized strategist and a board advisor guiding Fortune 500s and fast growth tech firms. Welcome to the panel, Helen.
Thank you, Shweta. It's such a pleasure being here with you today.
Thank you. Joining us as well is Marcella Arthur. She's a seasoned GTM strategist and startup advisor with over 30 years of experience as a leader across global brands and high growth ventures. Great to have you here, Marcella.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
All right, so we'll get started with a very interesting conversation today. We're seeing GenAI go from buzzword to a business tool, especially in B2B. Marcella, what do you think is driving this momentum? And is it the technology itself or the buyer behavior that is changing? Or it's something else? I mean, what do you think about it? What is your take?
I think before you look at what's driving it, you have to look at why it's being adopted. And interestingly enough, I think that there should be two kind of strategic reasons why organizations should be adopting AI. And sometimes they're only looking at one. So the first is productivity and velocity. You can't argue with the fact that with Gen AI, you automatically can become more productive, right? Companies are evaluating how AI accelerates their campaign execution, how it automates some of their repetitive tasks, how it unlocks capacity for a higher value of work. But I think one of the missing pieces that's even most critical, especially when you think of many of these tools that are open source, right? So they're being fed a lot of public data, is discovery and market presence. So equally important from my perspective is understanding how you as an organization are surfacing on AI. When people are doing searches, right? When your buyers are doing searches and they're trying to come up with a short list of who they should be engaged with, right? It used to be going to your browser and picking the best, search tool and asking some questions and then understanding. I think that that's changing. And there's tools out there where organizations are going and asking some very relative questions, even from a user experience perspective. So again, I think that the first thing you need to do is not just think about what's driving it, right? But if you're going to make a decision to adopt it, you want to make sure that you adopt it in a strategic way. Some of the other things that come to mind when I think about what's driving it is that it's quite mature now, right? These tools have been fed information for the last decade, right? And in many cases, I'm sure that Helen and I have fed it without even wanting to, right? Because of what we do from a marketing perspective. So I think it's easy to lean on these technologies so that you can get some rational, valid information just the way that you would, from encyclopedias, right? Years and years and years and decades ago. I'm kind of old school, so I remember those days. But I think that's part of it, is that they've matured quite a bit, and they're going to continue to mature. And I think that now there is this expectation of what can I draw from it? How can I actually drive more efficiency from a team perspective? Am I able to pull competitive differentiation around my solution so I can understand my competitive landscape better? So I think all of those things, but ultimately it comes back to two things for me. It's productivity and velocity. That's why we're leaning on this environment. It's almost doing more with less. Helen, what do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. GenAI is creating this real inflection point in B2B marketing today. What really excites me most is how it's enabling marketers to shift from reactive execution to predictive orchestration, right? I think, as you mentioned, I actually had a conversation recently with a Fortune 500 CMO lately. Her statement really was profound, right? She said, Helen, we've moved from chasing our buyers to orchestrating their journey, from chasing our buyers to orchestrating their customer journey. So this really, so what's really driving this to me, I would say, is really the force, right? The kind of convergence of three things. Number one, the buyer expectation have shifted, right? We're in that always on, or if we want something, we get it instantly mode. So really, that's really makes a difference. Secondly, the technology, as you mentioned, Marcella, has matured, right? We, ever since with generative AI came out in 2021, November, and people can get their hands on to see the result instantly. Finally, is pressure on performance. As a consumer myself, if I have to get on a website waiting for 3 seconds, that to me is not acceptable. But remember those days they wait for 10 minutes to things to turn, and there's no problem, right? And then also financially, CMOs are being asked to do more, as you mentioned, do more with less. Definitely, that GenAI enables team to scale content, optimize campaigns, and automate routine tasks without having to grow headcount, right? So all those, the convergence of technology readiness, buyer pressure, economic necessity, that's really driving this rapid shift from hype to action today.
I would agree.
Yeah, I agree. And that was an interesting and insightful perspective from both you and Marcella. Helen, I would also want you to walk us through some real life use cases. Generative AI is making a difference in B2B marketing.
Well, how much time do you have? I have tons of them. Well, let me start with 4 use cases. If you think about it, the first one I think really resonate with me is intent-driven content creation. Right, as a marketer, we create content almost on a probably daily basis. Right, a global SaaS firm that I worked with, they actually use generative AI to generate messaging tailored to buyer persona based on CRM and behavior data, right? And through doing that, we saw 32% lift in lead to MQL, that's marketing qualified lead conversion within 90 days. So that's the first one. Second one is more about competitive intelligence, right? A fintech company I work with, we deployed AI to monitor competitors in real time. For example, we can monitor their hiring trend, their content, their social signals. When the system flagged a competitor ramping up blockchain hires, my client launched a campaign and beat the competitor to market by 2 months, right? That's significant intel. And then the third one is about a really one of the most exciting products I've worked with was a global logistics provider. We use generative AI to generate real-time geo-target campaign copy for different market regions, something that used to take weeks. Now with generative AI, it just took hours. Engagement rate went up by 40% and customer acquisition costs dropped significantly. Lastly is a client SaaS company, B2B SaaS company. We built a custom AI sales assistant. Obviously, I mean, that really not only drafted follow-up emails, also prioritized leads based on sentiment and buying signals from calls, right? Marketing draw those data from their data, and that really boosted their productivity by 50%. So those are the four I think came to mind. But these really examples illustrate AI's strategic value, really transforming from reactive execution into predictive market positioning. The organizations leverage these capabilities, really fundamentally shifting their competitive advantage.
Absolutely. Marcella, do you have any other case to share with us? Would you like to add in here?
I mean, I completely agree with Helen that there's so many different use cases. You know, I look at myself, I've been in marketing now for almost, over 3 decades, which I almost hate to say out loud, but that's my reality. And what I think is interesting is that it's not about if you adopt AI, right? It's a when, because whether you want to embrace it or not, you have to move to it. Most of the tools that we as marketers use today, either in a leadership capacity or from a managerial capacity, all have incorporated AI as a component to make life easier for the people that normally support us. I mean, that's the reality of it. I would say that one of the things that I found most interesting, because initially I was one of those individuals that was going kicking and screaming. I don't want anybody to write anything for me. I want to write my own content. But where I saw the most profound impact or effect is in building ABM programs. The reality is that account-based marketing is a foundational, critical part of any marketing strategy today. You compete with everyone, and it's not just competing with the solution that does something similar. You're also competing with conversations that may not even pertain to what you do because there's so much digital noise in the marketplace. So to be able to leverage AI to come up with very, very, very dynamic content, right? Asset creation that's really tailored to specific accounts, to buying groups, to that user journey that Helen talked about. You know, that's really critical, and that's something that, you know, we can do now very easily with the use of AI. It would take weeks and weeks of learning, compiling information in order to do that, you know, in 2 years ago. Now you can do that in a really fastidious manner and trust in the data if you're leveraging AI, right? Because I think that's one of the other things that we cannot forget, right? There's this ethical component to AI. And one of the things that you need to ensure is if you're going to make the decision to adopt it, right? Because again, it's not an if, it's a when, that you have to make sure that you have the right structure to support it and that you're validating information. Sure, it can help you write a blog, a plan, mission critical content that's very specific to a buyer or a user, but you have to make sure that you have the right processes in place to test that information. I think there's too many companies out there that are saying, listen, I don't need to hire a content writer anymore. I don't need to hire a product marketing person anymore. Well, that's not the case. What you really need to do is you need to invest in a content writer and a product marketing person that understands how to leverage these tools and really understands the impact of leveraging these tools so that they're using it from a productivity or velocity perspective, but that they're actually testing what's coming out from an output perspective and comparing it to the insight, the knowledge, and the data that they know and that they gather as well.
Absolutely. Marcella, thank you so much for sharing your experience and laying out such vital use cases there. It's really exciting to hear all this potential that AI has, but of course, none of it sticks unless the foundation is solid. GenAI can only be as effective as the data and the systems supporting it. And there are many organizations which are still facing a challenge there. So let's dive into what it takes behind the scenes to make AI work. Marcella and Helen, could you elaborate on some of the core building blocks that need to be there in order to have, in order for AI to have a long-term impact into a business
Yeah,
growth?
I think
Go ahead.
Marcella actually already mentioned a few very critical points earlier, right? Being ethical, but I would add three more foundational building blocks. The first one, we all talk about data, but a robust data infrastructure. AI cannot deliver value without a clean, unified, and structured data. Obviously, some unstructured data can be uploaded as well, but you gotta understand the difference and how to really map them together. One of the enterprise company I worked with, we improved their lead scoring accuracy from 23% to 89% only after investing in data consolidation. Right, there are a lot of duplicated data out there, and then sometimes the data are out of date, and then you got to make sure you know what kind of data you have, type of data you have, who are using them, what the data sources are, who are the consumers for that, and then protection in terms of data privacy. What's the nature of the data? So you need to really have your ducks in a row when it comes to data. If you're going to do anything using that data, for what purpose, and then you want to make sure you understand how to protect consumers or customers or sensitive data as well. Number two is a cross-functional alignment, right? You think about AI, it works best when marketing, sales, and IT, and then or cross-functional leader collaborate, not necessarily in silos. We actually implemented some weekly alignment sessions at some companies. It sounds very simple, but really it reduces the sales cycle by a significant amount of time. Lastly is the change management. And there's going to be psychological impact on humans, right? There's going to be that fear for losing jobs. And then Marcella mentioned earlier about, AI, you shouldn't just, gonna skip hiring of content writer or product marketing leader, because AI can do, I would consider AI as a superb assistant, but it would not be, or admin, right? It would not be a master who knows your business like the employees you will have. So you still need that human combination, really have human in the loop to help really drive some of the activities. And it's a culture shift, right? Think about implementing or AI adoptions, the culture shift. At one of the manufacturing firm, we actually turned one of the sales resistance into adoption by enlisting top salesperson as AI ambassador. That really led to 20% of increase in deal closures. You got to really work with human. The other thing I would say, as part of this, you have to make sure we don't lose the human touch throughout, right? The interaction, not only with AI, but interaction with your customer, interaction with the entire journey, the life cycle of your marketing journey. That's really important for me. Those are kind of the three fundamental pillars: data, alignment, and change leadership are really important for long-term success. Marcella, what's your take on this?
I completely agree. I think that at the end of the day, it's up to the company or to the organization that these teams are supporting to implement, clarity around AI usage, right? When and how to use it. Making sure that they understand that AI augments and supports their role. It doesn't replace their role and what that looks like, right? They shouldn't be afraid to use it. They should embrace the use of it. I think part of it too is making sure that that leaders, right, who are having their teams leverage AI, that they understand that, that this is they're reinforcing that culture of experimentation and learning through some of these tools as well, because it really opens you up to so much good data. But like Helen said, at the end of the day, it's only as good, right, as the data that it's fed. So you have to make sure that you have processes and practices in place consistently that is testing and validating its usage and what you're experimenting with. I think it's really important to have ethical guardrails and compliance considerations, like establish clear guidelines and appropriate AI use, like when to use and when not to use AI. And if you're going to use it, make sure you're using it in a privacy preserving way, right? It's okay to benefit from this pool, this massive, massive rich pool of data. But you also have to consider that if you're not using it in a privacy preserving way, you could potentially putting some of your own critical data, right, into these open source environments. So you have to be responsible. Again, that compliance consideration is super, super critical. And what I've seen happen, because I've been in the privacy space myself for over a decade now, is that if you don't embrace it and if you don't apply it with constraints, right, with the right management around it, you're going to have people use it outside of policy. They're going to use it anyway, right? Whether you decide to adopt it or not, they're going to use it. And if they're using it, you want to make sure that you're using it in a responsible way.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, because the rise of shadow AI is a major concern, right? That's definitely one of the risk factors for businesses.
Wow, that's some fundamental, that's some significant perspective on how to get the fundamentals right. Thank you so much. Marcella and Helen, that brings me to my next question. So what is the next frontier? Which tools or trends should marketers be paying attention to right now?
I mean, I wouldn't point out tools specifically. Like I said, I don't think that there's a way of avoiding the usage of AI, but I think what you have to do is be strategic about the tools that you use and how they're incorporating AI into their technology, particularly from a marketing perspective. The role of marketing ultimately is to support sales, right? It's kind of this necessary, critical relationship that exists in every organization, whether it's B2B or B2C. Marketing sales are connected and tied together. So you have to make sure that when you're adopting AI, that you're adopting it in a way that actually impacts both those teams, and that you're doing it again in an ethical and a compliant and governance way. So my recommendation is that you look at your tech stack. You look at the opportunity of your existing tech stack and which parts of your tech stack are actually incorporating AI and what aspects are being incorporated, and that you have kind of a general sentiment across your teams of how you're going to leverage and use it, and start to build out playbooks on its usage. Even from an onboarding of new employees, you want to make sure that that employee from day one understands which tools you're using, where you incorporate AI, how the business is leveraging it, and what is the governance around it. So from my perspective, and maybe I'm too governance centric, again, being in privacy and protecting data, that's been my remit for a really, really long time. I spent almost 3 decades in cybersecurity, even before entering the privacy space. And for me, it's not just how to use it, but how to use it in a compliant and governed way. That's, to me, the most important element of adoption.
Well, from my perspective, there are 2 evolutionary trends coming up, right? The first one is obviously the agentic AI. So that's a system that really transitioned from analytics insights to autonomous execution. I recently observed a demonstration where a marketing organization deployed what they termed on AI marketing co-pilot. That's what they call. What it does is it's really capable of doing the real-time decision making and implementation. Sounds really scary, especially from data privacy perspective, right? But if you think about a campaign launched Monday morning, demonstrated 40% superior performance, right, among the CPOs at 500 to 1,000 employee organization. By Tuesday afternoon, the AI system automatically reallocated budget from underperforming segments, generated new creative variants optimized for the high-performing audience, initiated that personalized LinkedIn outreach or any other social channel to similar prospects in the database, all without human intervention. Obviously, you need the review, right? The validation before you execute. But that was really cool, right? To me, agentic AI is already happening, and you like it or not, it's like really, really important, right? What it does, it can analyze, decide, execute autonomously. We're approaching a marketing operation where AI can publish content, conducts A/B testing, optimize messaging based on performance analytics, and reallocate budget across channels at machine speed. And then the second really innovation or frontier is multi-model AI integration. I'm working with organizations really testing conversational CRM systems where a sales team can verbally query complex data sets, right? You think about a sales executive can prompt to say, identify Northeast prospects who've engaged with our content in the past 30 days, match our ideal customer profile. That's really powerful, right? Think about that. And then that can help you generate talking points for the sales team and recommend what's my next really best action, and then help you optimize your outreach timing based on the engagement patterns. To me, those are the things that really excites me when you think about it. Obviously, not every company is ready for that kind of innovation just yet. Back to our earlier discussion, we have to have the basic foundations really built before we start, really learn how to walk before we start running. But those are what's, looking ahead, what could happen to marketing.
I would agree, Helen, when I think about, because one of the points that you talk through is this multi-model, right? AI combination where you can bring text, image, voice together to power your campaigns. That's something that it wasn't easy to do before. And now, right, it's easy for us to do that. So not only does it enable kind of richer storytelling or really, really specific asset generation, but you can actually implement it into the user journey. You can have on-demand real personalization at scale. So you can take a conversation that used to take 3-4 weeks to have, right? Now you can actually get that into a 2-day period because AI is helping you respond and really drill into that user experience in a much more expedient way. So I think that's super, super powerful.
Absolutely.
So we still have some time to go for our session, and I would be taking some questions that are there from the audience. Any of you can take the question. I'll go with one by one. So the first question is, how can B2B marketers strike the right balance between automation and the human touch when using GenAI in content and campaigns? Any one of you, please take it.
I mean, I'd love to answer that one because I think it's one of the most critical pieces. I think, again, AI is only as powerful as the data that you feed it that's specific to your business. So from my perspective, the way that automation should work, it should be automated around your own content. So the power of it, right, is combining what's available to us from an open source perspective, but then bringing it in and make sure that you're marrying or blending that with very domain specific content. And I think that's a critical piece from my perspective.
Yeah, I would agree. I would also add, don't start with AI yet, right? Start with who your ideal customer profile would be. And then, how, with the current process you have, where you have the gap, connecting with them. And then once you have those pieces ready, then you can leverage a tool to validate your thinking. And then leveraging a tool can help you accelerate your result. But then if you just start with a tool, let AI do everything, oftentimes you lose that kind of human connection, right? That's where we've seen some of the Fortune brand failing with a few ads out there. It was so obvious it was generated by AI, right? People can tell, people can feel. So that's where I would encourage you just not to start with two. Start with what exactly the messaging and the audience first.
It's interesting that you say that, Ellen, because one of the places where I've seen that, it's almost one of the places that's been implemented first and foremost, where I actually think it's failing a lot of organizations, and that is as a replacement or as a first step when it comes to service. If somebody's having issues with whatever tool or technology that they're using, and customer retention and satisfaction is critical to you, don't leave it to an AI bot to solve that issue, and don't make them go around trying to figure out how do I actually get to an individual who can help me, right? That's the human touch versus engaging for 20 to 25 minutes with an AI bot that's never going to get to the foundation of what they're actually looking for support. So I think that there's a huge benefit to using AI from a marketing, even from an early sales perspective, especially if you have a high velocity sale, right? But when it comes to service, especially in the tech space, I think that service still requires more of a human touch or approach.
All right, thank you so much. So our next question is something which is there in every marketer's mind, and it's close to my heart as well. So how do you see Gen AI impacting collaboration between marketing and sales teams, and especially in lead nurturing and conversion workflows?
From my perspective, it goes back to some of the earlier points that Helen and I both made, and that is that, the best well-oiled sales and marketing machine is one that has agreement or rules of engagement associated. When does marketing start, and when does sales pick up kind of the ball, right? That's really important. So from my perspective, you have to have agreement between sales and marketing on how you're going to leverage AI, how you're going to use AI, and that's part of your traditional SLA. What is that agreement between both of your teams on how you're going to embrace this and use this as a part of your processes? And I think that has to be discussed in advance of even adopting AI. Like I said, there's no way of not adopting AI in today's world. That's why when you're doing your planning, when you're being strategic and defining budget, a lot of companies do that now, right? Planning for 2026. Have the AI conversation. What's your tech stack look like? What parts of that tech stack are already leveraging AI, whether you want to use it or not? And how do we embrace it together to make sure that we're getting the right results?
Yeah, I would take a different perspective for this one. I would say forget about from marketing or sales, think about your customers or prospects, right? If you think about their journey before they make any purchasing decision, on average, they have to go through 27 touch points, right? So as a marketing and sales team, what are the things that they need when they're looking for something to buy, right? Obviously, they are going to search on you, so you want to make sure you're findable, right? You want to work together leveraging AI to make yourself stand out, right? That what AI can help you to figure out the key market trends, and what if your solution is selling certain product, then AI can help you find the keyword that's resonate with your potential target audience. As a, going through the demo or demonstration stage, and you can leverage AI to even help you strengthen your demo, right? And then work together in collaboration. The most important thing is to understand what your buyers their needs, right? Obviously, it's no one size fits all. Enterprise customer might be different from your SMB prospects, and then if you're different parts of segmentation or markets, all the things could be localized. And then as a sales and marketing, you have to collaborate. You have to think about where, have we done this elsewhere? And then if we have, what would be the right story? AI can help you find the relevant use cases that can be more tailored to this potential buyer or an existing customer for expansion, right? And as you get into the customer who already purchase your solution, onboarding, because that's still relevant to sales. They want to expand the footprint, you want to drive really successful deployment. That stage, you still need to understand, who are the key stakeholders. That's where you start engaging with them more, right? Once you acquire them and onboarding the client. And then once that's done, they go live. Marketing is still there. Marketing needs to turn them into referenceable customers, That's so powerful for marketing to stay engaged throughout this whole journey along with sales, and that alignment is super critical because each of them play their own role. Leveraging AI can help us gain a lot more insights, right? I remember those days we're on so many calls, right? You have global customer, different time zones. Imagine the amount of back and forth. And now AI, if you have a AI agent who can help you be the assistant to feed you information midnight, if you're looking for something, you don't have to wait for your sales team to be available. Vice versa for sales, marketing, they don't have to wait for marketing to be ready to give them some relevant use case or success stories. So that's being said, the collaboration is going to be enhanced, right? More automated, enhanced, without losing the human touch overall.
Agree. Thank you so much. One more question. I think we still have 2 minutes to go. I'll take another question. Any insights on how marketing teams are reskilling or upskilling themselves to work more effectively with the GenAI tools?
Marcella, yeah, okay. I love this question because I tell you, constant learning is the only game in the town in today's environment, right? If we not learning every single week, we're already falling behind. That's how I feel. I feel like there's no more expert in AI or cyber or any other emerging technology anymore because things are evolving on a fast pace. Every single week I find something new, right? But when it comes to learning, upscaling, rescaling at scale, it's super important to have that culture of learning, right? Cultivating that culture, meaning that you have to allow, I just had a very good CXO Spice podcast with the partner at BCG. They did a recently research, AI at work research. They uncovered up to 5 hours of learning per week is really adequate, right? If you have you just let employees go take 2-hour training every quarter, that's just not adequate anymore, right? That's being said, what I find is really impactful, one of the things we created AI, we created a knowledge base using AI, right? We constantly update that, working with the client where we have the people with domain expertise to upload information. They all take ownership to learn. So they have buddy system. This week, if I want to learn more about product management, whatever that is, I'll buddy up with someone from product team as a customer success person, and then they learn from each other for a month, and then we rotate with another group, and that sales and marketing is the same, right? We learn from each other the day in the life. Like if I'm a marketer, I want to know more about how sales work, right? Or how operation works. That cross-functional alignment, knowledge base, generated by AI and then updated on a regular basis by employees, super impactful. And because people get motivation too, right? And then the other thing is the culture of, recognizing people who put in extra efforts, helping each other, learning, and then, really carve out regular time, at least an hour a week with your team to share what they've learned this week and ask them about what have you learned this week. Super impactful for me.
I would agree, Helen. And what I will add, just because I kind of think it's my duty to, is that I'm always doing it in a privacy preserving way. At the end of the day, if you're sharing data that is specific to your business, specific to how you operate, and that could potentially be used from a competitive perspective, you want to make sure that you use that in a very controlled and governed way.
No doubt.
Well, thank you so much. That brings us to the end of this power-packed and engaging discussion. And thank you so much for this amazing insights. And I'm sure our audience has pretty good practical ideas to take back home today. Thank you so much again, Marcella and Helen. Over to you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shweta, and just couldn't agree more. I wish we had a bit more time to hear and respond to our audience's question. But please feel free to drop all those questions at info@gruziti.com. But I must say, what a powerful exchange of ideas. Thank you so much, Helen, Marcella, and of course, Shweta, for bringing such clarity and conviction to the conversation.
Thank you.
Thank
What
you.
landed for me was this, that real win comes when you align GenAI with intent data, GTM workflows, and revenue impact. And for any organization, I'm sure it's serious. They need to be serious about future proofing. Generative AI, as you mentioned, is the layer to invest in, govern, and grow. Thank you again for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
I'd again like to remind everyone that our subject matter experts are available in the lounge area and the booth. Please feel free to catch up with them for more information about our services and products.